Okay, so Mayashree, I hope you are ready.
Yeah,
Okay, then I'll be starting since it's already time now. Okay, I'll be giving the introduction. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible? Okay, hope so that I'm audible. Okay, so since the program is organized by Anti-Ragging and Sexual Harassment Committee, and I, as the member of Anti-Ragging and Sexual Harassment Committee, myself, Mrs. J.B.Law Mondal, I welcome our resource person, Mrs. Mayashree. She is my school junior. She's very talented from the school days onward. I know her very well. She's very good in her career as well as she's very interested in music. I have seen her some music live performance in Facebook. That's very good, really, Mayashree. And if she is a assistant professor of J.B. College, Guwahati, Assam. And if we talk about her life achievement, the career achievement, then it's a vast, it's a long list, we can say. But then also I'll be reading out some of the achievement of her. Okay, if we talk about the achievements, she is specialized in human rights and criminal law. She have also done her BA and LLB honors Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. Then she have done her Master of Law, National Law University, Delhi, and she has submitted her thesis to National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, in this year, that is 2021. And she has also published many papers in national as well as international peer-reviewed journals. Then she have also participated in the national and international seminars, conference, and workshops. And her area of interest is constitutional law, human rights, women empowerment, environment, political philosophy. And she is a great lover, as I have told in the beginning, that she is a great lover of music, nature, and books. So I welcome our resource person who will be talking us regarding the sexual harassment and bullying. So I hope these students will be benefited by today's program. And please cooperate our resource person. If any questions you have, then in the end of the program you can put in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and speak to our resource person. So I hand over the platform to Mayashree. Mayashree, you can take your time now. Thank you so much.
okay. Um, a very good morning to all of you, respected Madam Jubi Borua, and all my dear students, friends. Well, the topic of today's presentation or today's talk is sexual harassment and bullying, which is a very common phenomenon or a very debatable issue in today's time. And so, without taking much of your time, I would like to start with my presentation. I hope I'm audible to all of you. What to say?
Yes, Mayashree, you are audible.
I'm audible.
Yes.
So, so is the slide visible?
Yes, these slides are also visible.
Okay. So today's topic is sexual harassment and bullying, and I'm Mayashree Gharphalia, Assistant Professor of Law from J.B.Law College, Guwahati, Assam. And first of all, it is very important for us to know as to what is the meaning of sexual harassment. So from long before, there has been people has been sexually harassed before there was a term used for it. And since industrialization, people had to endure, sexual comments or demands by their superiors as a price for their economic survival. So at first, we should say that since the definition of gender is changing, therefore today, not only women, men are also sexually harassed. And Section 354A of the Indian Penal Code, that is the main criminal law of the country, states that a man committing any of the following acts: first, physical contact and advances involving unwelcome and explicit sexual overtures, or a demand or request for sexual favors, or showing pornography against the will of a woman, or making sexually colored remarks, shall be guilty of the offense of sexual harassment. So this particular definition of sexual harassment is not gender neutral. It says that a man committing any of the following acts, that is physical contact, that is if when I say men, please use the word inclusively, use woman also. So we can say that it is a physical contact when someone tries to touch you or advance before you, advance towards you in an unwelcome and explicit sexual overture manner, then it will be sexual harassment. And demand or request for sexual favors will be also sexual harassment. Showing pornography against the will of a woman or making sexually colored remarks or jokes or innuendos shall be guilty of the offense of sexual harassment. So let us look into some of the important international law, documents regarding sexual harassment. So according to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature in workplace or learning environment. So what is the definition? It says that sexual harassment includes unwelcome, that is unsolicited or undesirable sexual advances, that can be a touch, that can be a joke, etc., etc. Requests for sexual favors and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature in workplace or learning environment. It could be your workplace. So I'll be stressing more on workplace sexual harassment because after your degrees, after your studies, you're sure to visit or you're sure to join a workplace, or it is a sexual nature in workplace or learning environment. So it could be in school, it could be in colleges, it could be in universities as well, in any learning environment. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, sexual harassment is uninvited, that is unsolicited, or unwelcome verbal or physical behavior of sexual nature. It should be of sexual nature, that means any innuendos, any jokes, any pornography, etc., especially by a person in authority. A person in authority towards a subordinate, such as an employee or student. It should be by a person of authority towards a subordinate, towards the employee or towards the student. If any of such things happen, unwelcome jokes, unwelcome sexual overtures, unwelcome innuendos, unsolicited, any other physical or sexual behavior, especially by a person in authority, that means a person who is in authority to you and towards a subordinate, such an employee or student, would mean sexual harassment. Now, let us look into what is the term unwelcome means. The term unwelcome means a behavior which is unsolicited, that means unwelcome or undesirable or uncalled for, right? Or initiated by the victim, and she takes it as undesirable or offensive. So, such an unsolicited or unwelcome behavior which is not initiated by the victim and she should take it as undesirable or offensive, then only it is sexual harassment. It covers an extensive range of acts, gestures, and expression having sexual connotations. So it will cover an extensive range of acts. It may cover some gestures, it may cover expression, it may cover sexual connotations, it may cover any innuendo, it may cover any joke which is projected towards the victim. Then it will be sexual harassment. So it will cover an extensive range of acts, right? So the typical examples of sexual harassment include sexually oriented gestures, jokes or remarks that are unwelcome, repeated, and unwanted sexual advances, touching or any unwanted bodily contact, physical intimidation, etc. So the typical examples of sexual harassment would include what? Sexually oriented gestures. For example, if any person of your same sex or any person of the opposite sex wants to touch you undesirably, then it will be sexual harassment. Jokes or remarks which are sexually oriented that are unwelcome and repeated and unwanted sexual advances, touching or other unwanted bodily contact, physical intimidation, etc. would mean sexual harassment. And it can occur in peers too, within fellow friends too. Also it can occur if co-workers or friends repeatedly tell sexually oriented jokes, for example. So for example, you people are going into, you're sitting in the canteen, and then there is one person within your peers, within your friends, those who is, repeatedly telling sexually oriented jokes which you do not like, or which harm your reputation, or which harm your health or safety, is sexual harassment according to this definition, right? So it can also mean posting pornographic photos or make unwelcome sexual innuendos to another co-worker. If someone posts a pornographic photo which makes the other person uncomfortable, then it will be an unwelcome sexual innuendo to another co-worker. So it can occur in different scenarios. It can occur in afterwards conversation. It can occur in exchanges in the hallways. It can occur in non-office settings of employees and peers. So it can occur, sexual harassment can occur in different scenarios. For example, after hours conversation. If you are conversing, if you're interacting with your peers, with your friends after the main classes or after the periods, then it will be sexual harassment. Exchanges in hallways, if it can be, slight casual exchanges in hallways and other places, and non-office settings or employees and peers, it will be when it is given done in non-office settings of employees and peers, then it will be sexual harassment. Now there are two forms of sexual harassment according to the law. Two forms of sexual harassment, that is, first is quid pro quo. Quid pro quo literally means this for that. I repeat, quid pro quo literally means this for that. That is, implied or explicit promise of preferential or detrimental treatment in employment. For example, if your authority or of your superior, he impliedly or explicitly promises a preferential treatment or a detrimental treatment in employment, then it will be sexual harassment. For example, preferential treatment, okay, if my authority or your superior says that if you do this sexual favor to me, I would give you a promotion, then it will be sexual harassment. Or if you do not do this sexual favor to me, I will demote you in your career, demote you in your employment, then it will be sexual harassment. So quid pro quo is yet another way of sexual harassment, and implied or explicit promise or preferential or detrimental treatment in employment. It is implied or expressed threat about her present or future employment status. It will also mean implied or expressed threat about her present or future employment status. The next form of sexual harassment is hostile work environment. Creating a hostile or intimidating work environment is yet another form of sexual harassment. It will be like, creating a hostile or intimidating work environment means creating such an environment which is not safe, which is detrimental to the health and safety of the woman or any other, or that for that matter for men also. It will be a form of sexual harassment. It could also mean humiliating treatment likely to affect her health or safety. It would mean humiliating treatment, something which is very humiliating, something which is very gross, something which is very, not at all desirable. And it is such a treatment which is likely to affect her health or safety is another form of sexual harassment. Now let us look into sexual harassment in international scenario. So in the international scenario, sexual harassment is taken to be a human rights violation. It is mostly perpetrated against a woman. Why woman? Because from time immemorial, woman has been discriminated. They have faced discrimination and they has been harassed sexually from time immemorial. And it must be remembered that in India, a woman is sexually harassed every 12 minutes. I repeat, in India, a woman is sexually harassed every 12 minutes. So it is a human rights violation. It is a violation of the basic fundamental rights enunciated in the Constitution of India under Article 14, Article 15, and Article 21 of the Constitution. Article 14 of the Constitution talks about what? Talks about right to equality. Article 15 talks about right to equality in employment, and Article 21 talks about, Article 21 talks about right to life. So sexual harassment in the international scenario is taken to be a human rights violation, and then it is mostly perpetrated against a woman. Mostly perpetrated against a woman. Why? Due to the discrimination faced by the woman. And in India, a woman is sexually harassed every 12 minutes. So, workplace bullying has been recognized as a global phenomenon in a recent agendas, even of the World Health Organization and International Labour Organization. So, the World Health Organization and the International Labour Organization also talks about workplace bullying, and it has been recognized as a global problem, as a global phenomenon in the recent agendas of these two important international organizations. Now let us see what is the Universal Declaration Human Rights agenda about sexual harassment. Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I must tell you that now you will ask, what is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the first human rights declaration in the international arena that talks about the rights of a human being. So it is the first clarion call, and it says under Article 3 that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. So when we talk about everyone, then we could mean every man and woman has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. She has the right, or he has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. And the state parties to the UDHR, that is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, tell that there is an implicit obligation to protect women from violence as a part of their obligations. So the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which are the three main documents of international law, have said that any state, any country which is a party to that particular document shall have an implicit obligation to protect women from violence as a part of their obligations. They will have to protect women from violence as a part of their obligations. Then again, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, that is CEDAW, says that discrimination against women means any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex. So any discrimination, any exclusion, any distinction which is made on the basis of sex, in today's parlance, we'll have to use the term gender for this purpose. Discrimination against women means any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex. Then again, the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women, which was held in 1995, it calls for the governments, trade unions, employers, community, and youth organizations and NGOs to eliminate sexual harassment. So the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women, which was held in 1995, calls for the government, the trade unions, the non-governmental organizations, the employers, and the community organizations to eradicate all forms of sexual harassment in the workplace and sexual harassment in the learning environment. And what is learning environment? I already told you, learning environment could mean the school, the college, the university, or any other such learning environment, right? So the Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention, which was held in 1989, this convention also talks to in reference to the sexual harassment at workplace. So now let us talk about laws dealing with sexual harassment. So we have seen about on the the international scenario of sexual harassment. What is the basic idea of sexual harassment? Now the laws dealing with sexual harassment, the Indian Penal Code, which is the main criminal law, the substantive criminal law of the country, under section 295 says that obscene act, obscene act means any vulgar act, for example something which applies to the prurient interest of the society. Obscene act, obscene songs in the public, statements, words to the annoyance of others is punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 months, or with fine, or with both, and this provision is gender neutral. So section 295, what does it say? It says that any obscene act means that may be a vulgar act, obscene songs in the public, or statements, words to the annoyance of others. Such obscene acts, such obscene songs, such statements or words will have to cause an annoyance to the others. It is punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 months, or with fine, or with both. And this provision is gender neutral. That means it applies to both men and women. Section 354, outraging the modesty of a woman by assault or criminal force. Outraging the modesty, any such act which outrages the modesty of a woman. For example, maybe, pulling her dress, pulling her dupatta, pulling her scarf, or pulling her stole in the public could mean outraging the modesty of a woman. And this outraging of the modesty of a woman has to be done by an assault or a criminal force and is an offense. It is an offense, and the offender shall be punished with imprisonment which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both. So outraging the modesty of a woman is also one kind of sexual harassment. It has been defined under section 354 of the Indian Penal Code, and the offender shall be punished with imprisonment which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both, right? So next, section 354A. Sexual harassment, as stated in the earlier slides, is an offense, and the offender shall be punished with rigorous imprisonment. That is, imprisonment rigorously, and which may extend to 3 years, or with fine, or with both. It may extend to 3 years, or with fine, or with both. Section 354C. This section means voyeurism and offense. You know what is voyeurism? Voyeurism means watching or capturing the image of a woman when engaged in a private act is an offense. So this section 354C makes voyeurism an offense, and watching or capturing an image of a woman when engaged in a private act. Private act means it could be, her relationships. It could be when she is changing dresses. It could be when she is, engaged in an intimate conversation with her friends, or, a companion, etc., etc. So this section means such voyeurism an offense, and is an offense for the first conviction. That means if the offender does the act for the first time, the offender shall be punished with imprisonment which shall not be less than 1 year, but may extend to 3 years and also be liable to fine. This section makes voyeurism an offense, and watching or capturing an image of a woman when engaged in private act is an offense. For the first conviction, the offender shall be punished with imprisonment which shall not be less than 1 year but may extend to 3 years and also be liable to fine. And for subsequent conviction, that means if the offender does the act for the second time, the imprisonment shall not be less than 3 years and may extend to 7 years. So the imprisonment shall not be less than 3 years and may be extend to 7 years if the offender does voyeurism, is engaged in voyeurism for the second time, right? So section 354D, this section makes stalking an offense. Stalking is also a kind of sexual harassment. Stalking, that is, if somebody follows a woman, wants to make undesirable contact with the woman, wants to talk with the woman. Stalking can be done in the computers also. It can be cyber stalking also. It can be physical stalking. So this section makes stalking an offense, section 354D. For the first conviction, that is, if the conviction is for the first time, the accused shall be punished with an imprisonment which may extend to 3 years and shall also be liable to fine. This section makes stalking an offense for the first time. For the first time conviction, the accused shall be punished with an imprisonment which may extend to 3 years and shall also be liable to fine. For subsequent conviction, the imprisonment may extend to 5 years with fine. For subsequent conviction, that is, if the offender does the act for the second time, the imprisonment may extend to 5 years or 5 years, and that too with fine. Next, section 503. Criminal intimidation is an offense punishable with imprisonment for 2 years with fine. Criminal intimidation, that is, criminal intimidation could also take the form of sexual harassment. Criminal intimidation means if there is a threat given to the woman or the man, then it is an offense and it is punishable with an imprisonment for 2 years and with fine, right? So criminal intimidation is an offense punishable with imprisonment for 2 years and with fine. Next, section 499. Defamation and morphing of a picture of a woman with an intention to defame her is punishable with an imprisonment for a term extending to 2 years or with fine or with both. So defamation, you know about defamation, right? What is defamation? Defamation means, any act which lowers the reputation of the other woman in front of the right-thinking persons of the society. So if any person morphs or morphs the picture of a woman in order to defame her, then it is punishable with an imprisonment for a term extending to 2 years or with fine or with both, right? Next, let us look into the Information Technology Act. Section 67 of the Information Technology Act prescribes punishment for publication of obscene material in any sort of electronic form. So section 67 of the Information Technology Act says that any publication of obscene material in any sort of electronic form. Publication of obscene material means publication maybe of a pornographic film, publication of a pornographic or a vulgar photo, publication of a picture of a woman, publication of a morphed or a calculated letter of a woman, etc., etc., is punishable, and which will be punishable under section 67 of the Act. It prescribes a punishment, the Information Technology Act, right? And what is the punishment? The punishment laid out is imprisonment of either description, that will be simple imprisonment or rigorous imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years and with fine which may extend to 5 lakh rupees in the case of first conviction. So if the conviction is for the first time, then the punishment laid out is imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 3 years and with fine which may extend to 5 lakh rupees in case of first conviction. In case of second conviction, it may extend to 5 years and fine which may extend to 10 lakh of rupees. So in the case of second conviction, if the offender does the, offense for the second time, then it may extend to 5 years and fine which may extend to 10 lakh of rupees, right? Now, I would like to tell you about the Supreme Court ruling in one of the famous cases of sexual harassment, that is Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. In this Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan, what happened? A woman named Hawari Devi was, Manwari Devi was spreading awareness against child marriages under her, social work. Under the social work label, she was working against child marriages. And this particular woman was raped by the landlords of her place, of her state. So what happened? The High Court acquitted. The High Court said that no, these people are not, guilty. So the High Court acquitted the accused. So the Vishaka, an NGO, gave public interest litigation in the Supreme Court of India. Now, what is public interest litigation? Public interest litigation, you know that when there is a case between two people, then one of the two people can file a case in the court. But in public interest in the litigation, any one of the person who is, socially aware, who is socially aware of the problems of the society can pro bono publico go to the Supreme Court and file a public interest litigation. So NGO named Vishaka filed a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court, and the sexual harassment was being elaborately discussed in this particular case. So in sexual harassment, it said that sexual harassment is a violation of the fundamental rights guaranteed under the Articles 14, 15 and 21 of the Constitution of India. So what is 14? As I already told you, 14 is right to equality. That means all people shall be equal and they have equal protection of laws. Article 15 talks about, specific equality. For example, there will be no discrimination of people on the basis of caste, color, creed, place of birth, language, etc. when it comes to employment. And 21 talks about right to life. That is, no person shall be debarred of his life and liberty without the procedure established by law. So the guidelines formulated in Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan was that sexual harassment is a violation of the fundamental rights granted under Article 14, 15 and 21 of the Constitution of India. And in this case, some guidelines were also formulated for the employer of a working condition, employer of an industry, employer of a factory, etc., etc. So what were the guidelines? First, the guidelines were the duty of the employer. It is the duty of the employer to, set up healthy and safety working environment for everybody in his industry or in his factory. Preventive steps. The employer will be taking preventive steps in order to, prohibit, in order to avoid sexual harassment in any form in his factory or industry or in his working environment, in his working condition. Next, criminal proceedings. If it is proved that any of the employee in the factory or the industry is facing sexual harassment, then there has to be criminal proceeding against the accused, and there will be a complaint mechanism in every industry or every factory. That is, complaint mechanism means it will be the employer will have to constitute a complaints committee or a local committee or an internal committee in the factory or the industry in order to avoid any kind of sexual harassment. And the last is the third party harassment. If sexual harassment in the industry or the factory takes place as a result of the third party, the act or the omission of a third party, then the employer will take necessary steps in order to avoid such third party harassment, etc., etc. So, Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention and Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013 is an important, important legislation that has come up after the Nirvaya case of 2013. So Section 3(1) of the Act specifically prohibits the sexual harassment of any woman at workplace. So since you people are joining workplace after your degrees and your studies, therefore I'm taking the reference of workplace, because when we say sexual harassment, it is a broad topic. But when you come to law, there is law only specifically mentioned as to sexual harassment of women at workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013. So what is the procedure that has to be adhered to? First, complaints are to be made in writing to the internal committee within 3 months from the date of incident. So complaints are to be made in writing to the internal committee within 3 months from the date of incident. That means the internal committee or the local committee has to be constituted by the employer, and complaints will be made to the internal committee within 3 months from the date of incident. And if it is a case of repeated incidents, then from the 3 months from the date of the last incident. The employer shall constitute an internal committee or the local committee in order to avoid any kind of sexual harassment in the working place. The committee shall consist of a presiding officer. The presiding officer and the other members shall hold office for a term of 3 years from the date of nomination. So the committee shall consist of a presiding officer. The presiding officer and the other members shall hold office for a term of 3 years from the date of nomination. So the term of office will be 3 years from the date of nomination. The presiding officer shall be a woman employed at a senior level at the workplace. So the presiding officer shall be a woman employed at a senior level at the workplace. Minimum 2 members, male or female, from among the employees shall be the members of the internal committee. Minimum 2 members, male or female, shall be, members of the internal committee. And these 2 members will have to be very enthusiastic about women empowerment, about women issues. 1 member shall be from amongst non-governmental organizations. So 1 member in the internal committee shall be from amongst the non-governmental organization. Non-governmental organization, and this member will also have to be very enthusiastic about what? About the women empowerment or women issues in the workplace. At first, any case taken up by the internal committee shall be, tried to be settled down through dispute through conciliation. The dispute, they will try to settle the dispute through conciliation at first. What is the conciliation? Conciliation means without going to the court or without, going to the nitty-gritties of the court or the police. They will try to settle the dispute through conciliation or negotiation in an amicable manner. The complaints committee shall be vested with the powers of a civil court. The complaints committee shall be vested with the powers of a civil court. It can summon the attendance of any person. It can ask any person to attend the complaints committee. It can examine him on oath. It can examine him on oath and require the presentation of documents. It can require the presentation of documents. The complaints committee can require the presentation of any documents related to the complaint, etc., etc. Right? Yet another topic which was decided before presentation was bullying. Now, what is bullying? Bullying is a common term we use in our common parlance, and it is a very global phenomenon, and it is something which is happening again and again in any kind of learning environment, in any kind of working environment, etc., etc. So when it comes to working environment, we can use the term workplace bullying. So bullying is something very essential to know from your point of view, from your vantage point. Now let us look into the simple meaning of bullying. What is bullying? To force anyone to do anything using superior strength or intimidate someone. To force anyone to do anything using superior strength or intimidate someone. That means you are intimidating, you're threatening, you're coaxing someone to do something against his will. That is bullying. People are falling prey to bullying since decades. Since decades, people are falling, prey to bullying in schools, colleges, and universities. And bullies love to, make fun of his or her mates. This is one of the characteristics of bullying. Bullies love to, love to make fun of his or her mates. So in order to curb bullying, the UGC regulations on curbing the menace of ragging in higher education institution 2009 has been enacted. So the University Grants Commission regulations on curbing the menace of ragging in higher education institutions 2009 has been enacted. And what does it say? It says about the anti-ragging laws. And what are the anti-ragging laws? Immediate arrest of those who are caught ragging. So anybody who is ragging students, who is caught ragging, can be immediately arrested. And the victim can avail 13 sections of the Indian Penal Code if he has been ragged or bullied. So there shall be immediate arrest of those who are caught ragging, and the victim can avail 13 sections of the Indian Penal Code if he has been ragged or bullied, and can register an FIR, that is first information report, in the police station under the area where the crime has taken place. So immediate arrest of those who are caught ragging. The victim can avail 13 sections of the Indian Penal Code if he has been ragged or bullied, and he can register an FIR in the police station under the area where the crime has taken place. Laws that can be evoked in cases of bullying, Section 294 IPC, obscene acts and songs. So if any person has faced any vulgar acts and songs, then 294 IPC can be invoked. In Section 339, there has to be wrongful restraint. In Section 339, what does it say? If any person does not allow you to go through a different direction or through a particular direction, then it will be wrongful restraint and it will be punishable under 339 IPC. Section 340 will be wrongful confinement. If you are confined in a particular place, then it will be, wrongful confinement, which will be punishable under 340 of the IPC. Section 506, punishment for criminal intimidation. So if you are being threatened, if you are being coaxed, if you are being intimidated criminally, then you will be invoking Section 506 of the IPC. In case of extreme violence, in case of ragging and bullying, if there is a case of extreme violence, then in Section 323, there will be punishment for voluntarily causing hurt. 323, if someone voluntarily causes you hurt, then Section 323 IPC can be invoked. If someone causing hurt by dangerous weapons or means, if someone causes hurt by dangerous weapons or means like a sword or a knife or a gun, etc., etc., then Section 324 of the IPC can be invoked. Section 325, for voluntarily causing grievous hurt. If there is grievous hurt on the person, then Section 325 can be invoked. Section 326 can be invoked when there is causing grievous hurt by dangerous weapons or means. If someone causes grievous hurt by dangerous weapons or means, then Section 326 of the IPC can be invoked. Now, in cases where the victim has lost his or her life, in case when there is ragging and bullying, and as a result of which the victim has lost his or her life, then Section 304 can be invoked. That is punishment for culpable homicide not amounting to murder. In section 306, abetment of suicide can be invoked. If someone, abets the suicide of the victim, then this section 306 can be invoked. Section 307, attempt to murder. Section 307, attempt to murder can be invoked if someone attempts to murder the victim. At last, we must question whether the gender question, whether the sexual harassment laws and the laws which can be invoked in the case of ragging and bullying are gender neutral. The Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013 is not at all gender neutral, but because the definition of gender is changing nowadays, rape can be invoked not only against women, but it can be invoked against men as well. So sexual harassment law should be made more gender neutral. So you will now ask the question whether, whatever I said now is all about, safeguarding or protecting the rights of the woman. No, as I already in the beginning of the presentation, I said that when I say woman, you should deem it to be an inclusive language. You should always include men as well there. Then only the real, the real purpose of law will be served. Thank you. That's all for today.
Okay, thank you, Mayashree. It was a very good talk. I request the students, those who are present, if you have any question, you can put in this chat box or you can unmute yourself and speak to our resource person. Do you have any questions, students? Okay, I'm giving you 5 minutes time. You just think of your questions and you can put in the chat box. Yes, Mayashree, you want to say something?
No, 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 madam.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mayashree, since I am a member of anti-ragging committee, so
Okay.
can you say something regarding if suppose a student is facing difficulty or if she or he is having some sexually like engaged with some students in the college itself,
Okay.
uh, and she means she dislike it, then what type of punishment should be given to the other opponent, means those who means that person who is committing the crime?
So, as I already told that an internal complaints committee shall be constituted or a
Okay.
local committee shall be constituted. So, though this committee is applicable only in the workplace, these committees can work in the learning environment as well. So,
Okay.
the complaint has to be done to the internal committee, and first, the internal committee will see whether the problem can be solved amicably. If the problem is very grievous, if the problem is very heinous, if it is very of a higher intensity, then the complaint shall be gone to the police within 7 days of the incident. If it is very
Okay.
dangerous, then it will be taken to the police within 7 days of the incident.
Okay. Thank you so much, Maishri.
Okay.
Uh, so since I think the students they are not having any question, I'm so sorry for that, Maishri.
It's
Okay.
okay.
Anyhow, it was really a very good talk where our resource person she have talked about the forms of harassment. As she has told us, there are two forms of harassment, isn't it? Then she have also talked about the health effect that a woman or a man is going when they are having all this kind of promise the sexual harassment and bullying. What is the mental health condition as well as the physically what torture he or she is facing. Then also she has also mentioned regarding the international scenario of harassment. In international scenario, what kind of harassment is seen. Then also she has talked about that in India, in every 12 minutes, a woman is harassed. So it's a really great issue. And as our resource person already mentioned, that sexually harassment and bullying is a broad concept. It is not a narrow but a broad concept, where we have to, as our institution or as a member, we have to take a step to stop slowly and slowly. Obviously we cannot stop in a all of a sudden, but yeah, we can take a step to stop all these crimes. Then also
Yeah.
she has talked about the law that deals with the sexual harassment. And this sexual harassment and bullying, it is also a crime against human rights. It is not only for women, it is also for men also. And as you students are in this institution, I think you have gone through the lobby. We are having a complaint box of anti-ragging and sexual harassment. If any students are facing any problem regarding bullying matter or sexual harassment, bullying means sexual harassment matter, you can put your complaint in the complaint box, so that we, the member, we can check out that complaints, and we can sort out the problems. Then also we are having UGC regulations, which tells us regarding many laws, punishments. So it's also mentioned in the website. So please go through that, and I hope the students will be knowing much more regarding that rules and regulations. So, Maishri, thank you for
Thank
keeping
you.
my words and my request to come and have a talk with my students, where you have given a very great lecture on sexual harassment and bullying. It was really a fruitful one. I'm really thankful to you. And after long, long years, we have met like this. Hope in near future we'll be meeting physically also, where we can have a good talk on this kind of issues. And
Okay.
uh, and
So, would
also,
you like
since
something?
I have come to know that you are interested in human rights and women empowerment, in near future I might again call you for all this talk. Okay?
Okay, I would also like to, thank everybody and also you especially for inviting me to this lecture. And it was a proud privilege for me to speak to you people. And I hope that in the future we meet for many such interactive sessions. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm really thankful to you, Maishri.
Okay.
Okay, since the student are also telling thank you to you. Okay, so do you have any questions, students? No, till now, no one has given any question. Okay, thank you, Maishi, once again from our college, St. John College is very thankful to you, even though our committee is also thankful to you. Thank you,
Okay.
Maishri. Okay,
Thank you.
so students, you can leave the platform now. And I'm stopping this program now, and you can leave the platform. Thank you. Thank you, Maishri.
Okay.